What's up everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had to hide in a house with 10 men who all wanted him at once? And if you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
On a large cliff overlooking a rather large village stood a man. Garbed in blue open-toed, high-topped sandals, forest green pants taped down starting from his shin disappearing into his footwear. A gray long-sleeved shirt, with the same colored green short-sleeved turtleneck pullover, his sleeves bound to his arms by silver bands in the shape of a fox biting its tail, just under his elbow and above his wrist. Over it was a burnt orange flak jacket with an unusually high and thick collar. Finally a dark red overcoat with black flames licking the bottom covering his frame, reaching to about his calves. And on the back, a spiral made of 9 orange foxtails converging towards the center serving as a backdrop for a golden wave. The man himself was an oddity. While most people in this part of the continent were of a lighter skin tone, dark-haired, dark-eyed and of smaller builds. This man was just the opposite. He was very tall, towering above those around him. What was rarest in this nation was his physical appearance. He was blond and blue-eyed and his skin carried a slight natural tan. And because of it many women chased him in droves attracted to his exotic look that was so alluring, and the strange marks on his cheeks did not detour these women from their target, if anything it magnetized them more to him. The man's name was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, a citizen of the strongest shinobi village in the known world, Konohagakure no Sato, and is the top candidate to become the village leader, the Hokage. Naruto was an impressive man. At the age of 16 he was already considered by some as one of Konoha's finest shinobi. Now at 26 he was the strongest in the village. Even the current Hokage thought so, although she had been saying it since he was 17. But the village council had been adamant to accept the fact that he was the strongest. You see, Naruto was the container of the strongest demon to have roamed the world. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, the 9-tailed fox. The very demon that attacked the village of Konoha 26 years ago, and because of this, for most of Naruto's childhood he was treated as the demon incarnate. Not the frail orphan that the village treated like trash. But it was not all bad for the young boy. He had his special people, very few mind you, but important bonds nonetheless. His strongest was with the Hokage at the time, Sarutobi Izoran the Sandame Hokage. The owners and proprietors of the local ramen stand, Ichiraku Tuchi and his daughter Ayame. And eventually he befriended his final academy teacher, Amino Iruka. As he grew he befriended more people. Naruto had the ability to make the most hostile of people into close friends. A skill that would be lost to a traditional shinobi as their job focused on deception and death. But Naruto, as you could imagine, was never a normal ninja because of his nindo, or ninja way. He made friends with his fellow Ninja Academy students, most of whom were clan heirs. Entire nations were indebted to his courageous opposition to thugs or the return of their true queen. The most shocking was the promise to continue a lineage of priestesses. As well as a very intimate relationship with the strongest kunoichi in the world and current Hokage who took quite a shine to the young boy. Naruto was constantly thinking of those closest to him as he was now. Most specifically the kunoichi who now thinks of him as her own. No one knew when their friendship became so close, most chalked it up to him always calling her Ba-chan, and assumed the name just took hold and they just fell into the role. But if you asked, which no one did because they'd be afraid of her legendary strength, either one of them would recall different times. Naruto said it was when she treated him to some ramen before he went on his 3-year training trip. And she would say it was when she gave him her grandfather's necklace when he saved her from her ex-teammate, the same necklace she entrusted to her son and lover, now to her son. Either way they were fairly close. Namikaze-san, Hokage-sama is requesting your presence in her office. The tiger-faced Anbu spoke. Naruto sighed. He really was not looking forward to what was in store for him. Thank you. I'll be right over, he replied, and with that the Anbu was dismissed. Naruto took one last look at the village and disappeared in a flash of yellow. Tsunade waited patiently in her office for the man to come in. Fortunately this time she remembered to place the paperweights on her piles of work and opened all the windows, as he tended to let in a draft. "Baa-chan," yelled the man, as he stopped just short of her desk with a large grin. Apparently he was happy to see her. It took a few moments for the Hokage to reorganize herself and look presentable as well as to calm down enough to not throttle the man. "Naruto, I am sure you know why it is I called you here?" Tsunade asked as she tucked back a loose strand of hair. "The council, right?" His previous exuberance gone as if it was never there. "Unfortunately," she sighed. "Although this does have to do with you and the position of Hokage, and so they would like to meet with you later this afternoon." Tsunade was hoping that the keyword, Hokage, would stop him from questioning the council. What exactly is it that they want? Damn, he's gotten too smart for his own good. Tsunade mentally yelled, but maternal instinct praised the man. "Well, Naruto." She wanted to be as vague as possible. "They feel that you need to establish yourself before they can give you the title." "So they want me to start a clan, right?" Naruto questioned. Damn it. Tsunade, as his surrogate mother, had been pestering the man to finally settle down. After all, Akatsuki was defeated. Kabuto, with the remnants of the snake within him, was too weak to establish a following to become a threat to Konoha. And Sasuke was presumed dead by a Rasengan to the chest. But the snake did train to be as sneaky as his serpentine master, who was infamous for his revivals. He had taken care of his loved ones and she knew it was his time to be cared for. She had been trying to set him up with kunoichi and civilians alike. She would set up dates for him with various kunoichi. From older women like Anko and Yugo, to younger girls like Inuzuka Ibara, Kiba's cousin, and a girl his age, mainly Sakura, his longtime crush. But it seemed Naruto had not taken with any of the women. Yes, he took them out. Yes, he was a total gentleman. And yes, the women said that it was the greatest date they have ever been on and were interested in the young man, but he politely declined a second date. Although politely declining Anko was not so much of a decline as much as it was a restraining order. Tsunade looked at Naruto, who had a smirk on because he figured out her plan. Yes. The previous Hokage have come from large clans, the only exception being your father. So they want to keep the tradition going. Besides, it helps in scaring off other villages, knowing that there is an entire clan sharing the same techniques. Fine, I'll meet with them, the day after tomorrow. I have tons of stuff to do today and tomorrow. With that said, he turned around and made his way to the door. She slammed her fists on the table, nearly breaking it. Brat, you know you can't dictate when the council meets with you. I can't even do that. He stopped but did not turn around, and all he said was, "If they find me, I'll meet with them. Until then, see y'all later, Ba-chan." And he left in a swirl of leaves. Tsunade was pissed. Naruto had never been so rebellious. As a matter of fact, he did pretty much everything he was told to do, with a scowl, but he did it. As Tsunade got to thinking, she noticed that in the last few days Naruto had been acting a little off. He was still his goofy old self, but there was a new aura around him. And, I don't take crap from anyone, aura, one that he only showed on the battlefield. But in the last 2 or 3 days the man had this aura around him constantly, the difference being that when he stared down an enemy with this aura it was intimidating. Now it was slightly comforting but demanded respect. It was Naruto, but not her Naruto. I wonder if this is some sort of rebellious period, but he's already a grown man. Would a grown man have mood swings? Ah, the trials of motherhood, Tsunade? So the brat not listening to his mommy? A new voice called out. I'd kill you for saying something like that, Jiraiya, but Naruto isn't himself. I mean, it is him. And there is no way for him to be an imposter, but why the sudden change? And did you see the strange emblem on his back? He's a grown man, Tsunade. He's allowed to not be the loud-mouthed little boy you remember. And he's also allowed to change up his style. He's allowed to live his own life, and maybe that's his clan emblem, or his calling card. Only Naruto knows, but let him be. Jiraiya replied as he walked to the small plant in the corner of the room. Grasped the stem and lifted the entire thing, leaving only the very bottom of the pot, with a bottle of sake and 2 saucers ready on the makeshift tray. I guess you're right. For once, she was still looking at the spot from which he disappeared. But what Jiraiya inadvertently said about the clan seal put a large smile on her lips. I know your secret, you little brat, and I have to say it's genius. This was her Naruto. Well, here, have a drink. She took the offered dish and downed it one gulp. Let's have a toast to Naruto. With one last chuckle, her partner in crime downed his as well. To Naruto. Kami-sama. Oh, Ayame-chan, it's so warm. And they're so frim. Kami-sama, yes. Kami-sama. There was a rather large crowd gathered around the outside of the small ramen stand. They were intrigued and slightly aroused by the moaning and groaning coming from the small eatery, but none had the courage to actually look in. Whatever it was, it sounded amazing. Slurp, Kami-sama, oh. Ayame-chan, it's so warm. Slurp *m, and they're so frim. Kami-sama, yes. Kami-sama, slurp. Naruto was inhaling ramen at an ungodly rate. He enjoyed the silky and warm broth as it slid down his throat, and the noodles were just the right texture. Kami-sama, if this was heaven he would not mind being dead. A rather tomato-faced Ayame was surprised at the commotion the man was making over her food. And seeing a man of Naruto's caliber moaning out her name was making her rather hot under the collar. He was enjoying it tremendously, as if he hadn't had any in years. Nay, na Naruto-kun. Ayame stuttered out, glowing crimson now, as he took one long extended out his rather long tongue to slurp the last noodle from the bowl. It's as if you hadn't eaten ramen in years, and you were in here just last night? The young cook asked now that Naruto had settled down. She was starting to get herself calmed down. Oh Ayame-chan, I know, I was just in here last night. But today reminded me of the angel-like hands you must possess to have made such ambrosia. Naruto literally sang this as he pulled out Gama-chan and put the money in the small money dish. And as Ayame reached for the dish, trying in vain to hide the new stronger blush, Naruto grabbed her hand, gasped. Oh no, I was mistaken, the hands of a goddess. With that said, he gave her hand a peck and walked out of the stand. As Tucci walked into his stand, he couldn't help but notice his daughter standing out in the front with her hand outstretched over the counter. He walked up from behind to get a good look at his daughter. What he found was slightly disturbing for the father. She had a large blush on her face. As a matter of fact, she was a darker shade of red than their stand. She had a small trail of drool coming out of the corner of her mouth. But what was the real kicker was that she was mumbling some fairly erotic things involving a certain blonde. In a cafe a few blocks down from the ramen stand, sat three of the village's most beautiful and deadly kunoichi. Sakura Haruno, Ino Yamanaka, and Tenten Tsukabishi. Their thoughts centered around a certain blonde. How big do you think Naruto's penis is? Ino stated out of nowhere. Sakura spit out her tea, while Tenten chalked on a dumpling. Ino, what are you saying in the middle of the street? Tenten rebuked after she had a sip of tea. What? Please, as if you've never thought of that before? I mean, come on, he's got to be packing. What do you think, Sakura? I mean, you're the only one who ever went out with the guy, so what do you think? Sakura knew Ino was going to make this an inquisition, and had been trying to sneak her way to the door. No such luck with Ino. She began, apparently her tea was looking mighty interesting. Well, Naruto was the total gentleman. He took me on a fantastic date, but we never did anything for me to find out. Ino's mouth hung slightly open. How could you not have at least noticed it? You said it was the best date ever. Not all dates have to end in anything erotic, Ino. Sakura rebuked, still blushing at the thought of doing such things with Naruto. Sakura had to admit she did have a crush on her teammate. In all honesty, she had had a crush on him since he returned from his training, but out of routine she had declined his advances. Once she was certain that she would accept, the requests for dates had all but ended. She was disappointed, but Sakura never showed it. When Sakura was told by Tsunade she was going to date him, on the inside she was jumping up and down and doing backflips, on the outside she sighed and accepted. Yeah, but don't tell me you've never at least thought about it. I mean, there are times when I think of him when I... Tenten stopped mid-sentence, her face a shade of red that would make a tomato jealous. Tenten, Sakura scolded. Hat was that, dear, please finish. You think of Naruto-kun when you... Ino added, a huge grin plastered on her soft features. Hey look, Naruto is walking down the street. Tenten pointed out. Sure enough, the man came around the corner. It seemed as if he was thinking of something rather hard. Naruto, over here, Ino yelled out. Ino, I swear if you ask him I'll hit you so hard you'll land in Yuki no Kuni. Sakura threatened. Relax, I'm only going to ask him a few questions. Ino replied calmly, she was used to these half-hearted threats. Naruto, over here. Naruto heard as he made his way to his father's house. He looked up to see Ino waving him over to her, Sakura's, and Tenten's table. Good afternoon, ladies. Naruto bowed his head slightly to them. What can I help you with? Yeah, you can tell me what you did on all those girls' dates that made them proclaim how great you are? And why we haven't gone on a date? Ino asked, fluttering her eyelashes with the last question. Well, Ino, I am not one to kiss and tell. If you would like to know, you can ask them yourself. I just wanted to show them a good time for taking time out of their lives to go out with me. As for why we haven't gone out, you'd have to ask Ba-chan. Well, I am not going to ask the middleman. Why don't we just go out tomorrow? Ino answered. Hey, what about me? I want a date too. Come on Naruto, what do you say? Tenten added. That would be wonderful, ladies, it truly would be, but I have already made plans well in advance. I am very sorry. Ino pouted. Oh, Pooh, what could be so important that you can't take out one of the most beautiful girls in the whole village? Ino wasn't trying to sound vain, but when you've been voted hottest kunoichi in the elemental nations, it tends to come up. I can't, Ino, it's a surprise, but since you are here I personally invite you three, emphasizing the point that all of them were invited, to the Uzumaki Namikaze mansion Friday afternoon. The Konoha Council will want to break down my door, after what happens earlier that morning. So why not make it a get-together with some friends? What did you do, Naruto? Why would the entire village council come to your house? Tenten asked, rather worried for her handsome friend. Because of Naruto's unorthodox ways, the council generally disliked him, despite his mission completion rate. Nothing yet, and nothing dangerous, but it will get them angry. With that said, ladies, I would like that you keep this information from your parents. I guarantee you none of this will harm anyone in any way, but it will get your parents riled up. Naruto asked. He looked at each of them as he spoke. The look in his eyes proved to them that he spoke the truth and not hurting everyone, so they could trust him. You see, the Konoha Council consisted of two houses, the ninja and civilian. This form of government was established by the Sandaime, after the attack of the Kyuubi forced him to retake his post. The ninja house consisted of the heads of the 12 ninja clans. The civilian was established similarly but revolved around the 7 guilds. The guilds were unions of workers of a particular skill and were headed by the most successful family among them. Unless there were complaints, the family would never change. Naruto asked these ladies to keep his information a secret because these ladies were daughters and respective heirs to particular seats on the council, barring they married into a larger clan. The Archive Guild, in charge of all of Konoha's documentation, was headed up by Ume Haruno, mother of Sakura, and bookwormiest person in Konoha. Tsukabishi Tessai, father of Tenten, and head of Blacksmithing Guild. And finally the head of the Mind-Walking Ninja clan, Inoichi Yamanaka, was the father of Ino. Again, sorry ladies, but I must be leaving. With one final bow, he disappeared in a flash. The women sat in their seats for a while, exchanging glances. Whenever their eyes met, they shared a smile and shared an awkward giggle. So, I had to go help Dad with the shop. Bye. Ino disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Tenten and Sakura shared a smile again before both bolting out the door. Out to look for something to be seen in. The Anbu replied. Even with the council releasing Ki, he kept cool. After all, he was Anbu. What is the meaning of this? He cannot decide when he meets with us. Kaharu exclaimed. Her male counterpart, while silent, was just as angry. Danzo was unusually quiet in all this, which was making some of the shinobi councilmen to worry. Ah yes, Hokage-sama has a reply for this as well. That's what I told him, but he said if you wanted to meet with him any earlier you'd have to find him yourself. The Anbu spoke for his leader. Well, we will meet with him eventually, and 2 days difference doesn't really matter. We are just going to tell him he can marry 3 girls. Unless of course there are ulterior motives by some of the members. Shikaku Nara stated, leaning back into his chair. He noted that the council members with daughters slightly tensed. The shinobi hid it better than the civilians, but Shikaku picked it up, as did Danzo. He smirked, and summoned for one of his personal Anbu. He spoke something into their ear, and he took off. That is not the point, Shikaku. What is wrong here is that Naruto is defying the council. Inoichi cut in. Again the Hokage has a response. Yes, Naruto has defied the council, but he must have his reasons for doing this. I say that we let him do as he pleases for now. We have no reason to believe that Naruto would harm the village. So the council can push its agenda on him on Friday. She is coddling the boy, her personal relationship is clouding her judgment. The jailer can fall victim to the prisoner at any time. Homura said. Although Naruto was respected now, he still held the demon, which unfortunately was a cause for weariness on the part of the council. Shibi suddenly tensed and jumped up. Well, that is a logical conclusion from Hokage-sama. I shall now take my leave. With that, Shibi Aburame buzzed off, no pun intended. Danzo, you have been awfully quiet in all this, what do you think? Kaharu asked. Whatever it is that the boy is trying to do is of no importance. He is sadly mistaken if he thinks he can hide something from the council. Danzo replied. He snapped his fingers and his last Danbo appeared and they both left. With a councilman and an elder gone, Hiyashi called, meeting adjourned, and everyone else left. End flashback. We must have Naruto on the side of the civilian house. The ninja holds too much power in the council. Ume stated. Even so, dragging Naruto-kun into this seems wrong. Even worse is what you suggest, Haruno-san. Tucci, do you not want Ayame to live in the lap of luxury? Having her as one of the establishing mothers of the up-and-coming Namikaze clan would assure her happiness. The head of the Vendors Guild glared at the woman. What father wouldn't want their daughter to be happy? Once it was decided that Naruto was to start a clan, Ume had stated that the best thing to do was to have him marry girls from the civilian house. Ume was hoping that Naruto would be under the thumb of his wives, who in turn would be under their parents, who would be under her as head of the civilian house. She was certain Sakura would be chosen after all. The boy had been chasing her daughter since they were in the academy. And the fact that he hadn't asked Sakura out on a date in years has proven that he had matured, right? So Tucci, what do you say? Would you convince Ayame-chan to at least go out with him once? I'm sure she would have a wonderful time. This time it was Tessai, who was pushing the ramen vendor. He had already seen the truth in Yun's words long ago, and had casually brought up Naruto's name around his daughter. Never once did he tell her to go out with him. But after a while he noted that Tenten would bring him up in conversation herself. His passive manipulation worked. I'm sorry, but Ayame should find her own happiness. If she makes a mess of things, I will be there. But I will not force her into something she may not even want. Goodbye. Tucci got up and slammed the door on his way out. The other heads looked to Ume. She had a short temper, and they were looking for signs of her eruption, so they could make an escape. Fortunately, she was calm. Well, it seems the Vendors Guild has made their choice. Very well then, it seems everyone has chosen what to do, so we can finally go home. Noon, Naruto was headed for the market district. He needed to buy food for the get-together. As he walked down the streets of the village bazaar, he came upon Shikamaru Nara and his fiancée Tamari no Subaku appraising a vendor's selection of vegetables. Well, hello you two, what a pleasant surprise. Naruto stated, walking up to them. He formed a shadow clone and ordered it to take what he had already purchased home. Ah, Naruto, hello, shopping I see. Tamari casually replied. Her fiancé, however, was never so casual. That's a lot of food, Naruto, what are you up to? Tamari for her part elbowed him rather hard, making him bump into a red-headed, pig-tailed woman carrying baby food. After an apology she went on her way. I can never get anything past you, can I, Shikamaru? Naruto chuckled. Well, you see, I am having a small get-together with the council, so to make things fun I'm inviting some friends over, so why don't you two come over Friday afternoon? Nah, to true BOOF. Why thank you Naruto, we would love to come, right Shikamaru? Tamari asked, cutting off Shikamaru's initial response, as she dug her heel into his foot with every syllable of his name. He only got out a grunt before he was dragged away. Naruto rubbed his gut in phantom pain as he watched the loving couple walk away. Baby food, huh? Shikamaru spoke quietly. Tamari stopped in her tracks, her head down. Shikamaru was worried, his previous train of thought derailed out of concern for his fiancée. You alright there, Tem? She looked up and what he saw in her eyes scared the crap out of him. It was the same look in her eyes, whenever she had that word. It was a look that promised an amazing night, troublesome, but amazing nonetheless. Baby, 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 she kept repeating as she walked slowly to him. Her eyes glazed in lust. Oh crap. He got out before he was carried off into one of Konoha's various love hotels. As Naruto saw his friend carried off to have his junk taken advantage of, he sensed something flying at him at amazing speeds. He did a quarter turn and in a flash stuck out his hand, and in that instant he had a kunai spinning around his index finger. Damn, thought I had you, he heard yelled out from one of the buildings. Good afternoon Anko, you know you should be careful with your kunai. If I wasn't paying attention, I'm sure you would have taken off my ear. As he looked up to her position on the roof, he took a few steps back. Pink? Never would have guessed. So how's it going? She asked. Oh, just getting ready for the council on Friday. Saw you invited Pineapple and the Yonbi. Anko said, shuffling her feet. Now Anko-chan, do I sense a hint of jealousy? Her eyes widened and she looked elsewhere with a huff. Of course I was going to invite you. Well, let me make it formal. Anko, I would love it if you came to a party I'm having Friday afternoon. But I also have something that only someone of your expertise can help me with. See, with the tenant and all, I've never been able to feel the effects of alcohol, so I never found a taste for it. So I was wondering if you could take care of the refreshments. Fine, but the namikaze will be in my debt. Of course you will have the head of the clan at your disposal, twice. He pulled out Gama-chan and stuck his entire hand in the poor frog. Anko could swear it shed a tear. He pulled out a larger red frog from its depths and handed it to Anko. She was surprised. On its belly was its name, Bunta-chan. Space seals? Space seals. With that mystery solved, she sped off to find alcohol. Naruto walked down the streets of Konoha and thought, okay, I got the stuff for yakitori and curry. The fish for sushi I'll get the morning of. I'll see if Ichiraku can cater for me. That's all the shopping, so now to the clans. He first set his sights for the training grounds, to invite Neji, Lee, and Guy. Despite not being a team anymore, they practiced every now and again. Well, Guy and Lee trained every day. Neji joined them Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tenten joined in Tuesday, Thursdays and Saturdays, and they practiced together on Sundays. Being a Wednesday, he could invite the guys. Unfortunately, Guy and Lee jumped to conclusions and attacked Naruto for angering the council for no reason, saying it was unyouthful. When he calmed them down, he extended it to Neji, who had taken it upon himself to invite Hinata. After his forced training session, he headed over to the local shinobi bar. Sure enough, he found Kiba, and to his surprise, Kakashi and Iruka, who was being rather successful in picking up the new Kunoichi studies chairman from the academy. He invited all three, after buying around for the whole bar, and made sure to tell Iruka that he could bring a guest. The last few would be near or around their clan homes, so he headed in that general direction. Passing the abandoned Uchiha district, he came upon the Hyuga compound. He trusted Neji, but he wanted to personally invite one of his closest friends. Hinata, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about, but on Thursday. So why don't we hang out? Naruto asked. Hinata hid her rising blush. Ever since Naruto had become her sparring partner, she had gained confidence around her crush. They had become close since then and would hang out from time to time. The village, at first, rumored that the girl had finally captured her longtime crush, but she vehemently denied the accusations, much to their surprise and confusion. Well, Naruto-kun, that would be nice, but are you sure you will have time? I mean, with the party preparations and all. Nonsense, Hinata, I can have clones do the work. So what do you say I pick you up around noon? Sure, she chirped. With that done, he knocked on the Sarutobi gates and invited Konohamaru and his team. They trained on his clan's expansive fields next to the Akamichi, where he was forced-fed by Choji's female cousins. After all, the way into a man's heart is through his stomach. He passed the Yuhi compound, since the only Yuhi he personally knew was Kurenai, and Anko would invite her and her son, and besides, she moved out of the compound. He saved his favorite place for last, the Aburame hive. Shino was the only one of the 12 to be married. He married Mine, a beautiful kunoichi from Kiri. She came from a water-bug-using clan, but was banished from her clan because she did not master their clan's special technique when she was young. The technique is similar to the Inuzuka beast mimicry, but granting bug attributes. She sought sanctuary with Konoha and the legendary bug-using clan. Eventually the two fell in love and married 6 months later. Shino was also the first of the 12 to have a child. Her name was Nyoko, and Naruto was the girl's godfather. Naruto walked through the main gates of the hive. Several colonies of Kikai bugs lived in the wall. If the compound was ever attacked, they would attack. Once he walked through the streets, he bowed to the males and hugged some of the females. The Aburame had an interesting personality quirk that not even the elders could explain. For full-blood Aburame, the males of the clan are calm and reserved, the women bubbly and expressive. But as children, the boys are expressive, and the girls are reserved. Only until the onset stages of puberty do the boys clam up and the girls open up. But once they neared the battlefield, all Aburame became calm, collected and calculative. As he finally made his way to the main house, Naruto knocked on the door. He heard pitter-patter of small feet and braced himself for the bullet that would crash into his abdomen. Chi-Chi-Ue, 1, he heard as he was struck in the gut by a small brunette. The title that young Nyoko gave Naruto was a little disconcerting at first. After all, if a child starts calling another man father, it can raise some eyebrows. And it did, but she called Shino, Tu-san, and no matter what she wouldn't change her mind on the matter. "Hello Nyoko-chan, you're getting better with your kikai, aren't you? I heard you coming before I knocked," he praised, as he embraced and picked her up, some of her bugs crawling on him. He took one look at her and was glad she had some of mine in her. He couldn't imagine what she would be like had she been full blood. She was searing light lavender top with butterflies dancing through flowers, and pale pink shorts. If an Aburame wasn't in public, they would not wear the Aburame coat. The coat had multiple uses. The most important was to cover the emergence pores. Since it was a direct opening to the user's body, they needed to be hidden not only from enemies, but to keep them clean, and to regulate body temperature. It was also a privacy thing, since an Aburame's emergence pores were unique to each member, thus were considered very personal. "Nyoko-chan, you know better than to crash into people." Naruto turned to Aburame Mine as she scolded her daughter. The elder brunette sighed as she dried her hands on her apron. "Hello Naruto-kun. What a pleasant surprise. Hello Mine, is Shino home? I have something to ask both of you." Naruto walked in and removed his shoes. Nyoko still in his arms playing with his hair, something she kept from her younger years when he would babysit for them and Shino's parents couldn't. Kids just loved to play with his bangs. "Let me go get him, he's out back observing the new larva." As she left, Nyoko turned to him. "Guess what, Chi-Chi-Ue?" "What is it, Nyoko-chan?" "Ka-san said if I can make a kikai bunchin, she will teach me some of her family techniques." Her green eyes sparkling as if made of emerald. "Congratulations." Despite being only 4, Nyoko was an Aburame genius. She had excellent control of her bugs and had started working on actual jutsu. Something her father, the old genius, started on when he was 6. "Well Nyoko-chan, I think this development deserves a gift." Nyoko's eyes widened. "What is IT? What is IT? What is IT?" she yelled. Naruto loved his goddaughter, and every visit he would bring her something from somewhere. And today was no different. "Okay, close your eyes," he said. She eyed him. Buddha complied. She felt her kikai release a pheromone related to surprise. She was slightly confused. Her kikai never reacted to any gift. "Okay, you can look." When she opened them, he wasn't holding anything, but he did have his foxy grin. She looked around, and when she turned her head, she felt something cool around her neck. And she saw a pendant in the shape of a ladybug, its body a ruby, its legs made of white gold. "It's beautiful. Thank you." She hugged him tightly. She noticed small marking for its dots. "Chi-Chi-Ue, what are the dots made of?" "You have a sharp eye there, Nyoko. Those are Hiraishin seals." She held it between her fingers and eyed it critically, not even noticing the arrival of her parents, but Naruto did. "But I already have the wooden kunai you gave me," she inquired. "I know, but this one is if you are on. I don't know a date with that Matsu boy." Shino choked on the tea that he was sipping. Mine giggled. That was when Nyoko noticed her parents and almost glowed a neon red. "Well, whatever the case, if you can't carry the kunai with you, at least you have this, and besides, this one is small enough for your kikai to activate, if you can't." "Nyoko, who is Matsu?" Shino asked, his kikai buzzing in annoyance. With a small eep, she buried her head in Naruto's shoulder, where he heard a quiet, "Chi-Chi-Ue no baka." He chuckled and patted her head. Now Shino, I was only teasing. Anyway, I came over to invite you guys to a small get-together I'm having on Friday." "A party? Can I come?" Nyoko miraculously forgot all previous embarrassment. "I don't know, Nyoko, it'll be full of adults and you'll be bored." Mine said. "We would love it if you come, Nyoko, but the kinds of get-togethers adults have are just a bunch of old people standing around talking and drinking the stinky stuff OG drinks." Shino added, the stinky drink being sake. "Oh, don't worry, she can come. I'm sure we could find something she can have fun with." Naruto interrupted. "Really, Naruto-kun? Oh, trust me, Mine, she will have a blast. The more the merrier, I always say." With his patented foxy grin, the deal was sealed. Naruto stayed a little while longer and instructed Nyoko on how to use her new pendant, and to explain how her Kikai could use it, should the need arise. When she was called out to play by her cousins, Naruto stayed and chatted with Shino and Mine, where they invited him to dinner. He happily accepted, since Mine was a great cook. But before they started eating, Shibi came in and said he needed to speak with Naruto. Shibi-senai, Naruto started but was cut off when Shibi raised his hand. Naruto, I am not here to ask you what it is that you are doing. Nor am I here to reprimand you for not seeing the council. I trust you with the life of my granddaughter, and that is all the trust I have for someone short of the trust in my wife. I am here to warn you. My Kikai heard Danzo give an order to one of his Anbu. Naruto's eyes widened, but he kept his cool. What did he say? He didn't give the full order, but he told the Anbu to head to HQ and assembled 10 units to go on a mission. When he would arrive, he would give them the official order. Did Danzo figure it out? I'm sure it'll be okay, but I have to be Rizy. How do you know this, Shibi? Not that I don't trust you, but how did your bugs hear this? As a precaution, I place female Kikai on everyone in the room, just in case there are imposters. If one of them assassinates someone, I have a female on them to track them if they escape. Once they leave and the meeting is adjourned, do they come back to me? Shibi explained. Thank you, Shibi, I appreciate this. He shook hands with him and allowed the Kikai to feed off of him. This was the most respectful thing you could do for an Aburame, since you put yourself at the mercy of the Aburame. As soon as Shibi walked in, he heard the familiar cry of Kachiyose no Jutsu. A minute later, Naruto walked in as well. Both were scolded by Mine for being late, and to go wash up since they were outside. Shibi looked for help from his wife, but she gave him the exact same look as Mine. Do wives have secret techniques? Naruto asked as they both shuffled to the bathroom. No, look at Nyoko, Shibi stated. Naruto turned his head around and saw that Nyoko as well had the same look. His eyes widened. Women have secret techniques, Shibi corrected, and Naruto broke down in tears. Early morning. The next morning, as Naruto made his way downstairs to get something to eat, he was shocked at what he saw. His house was packed with food. The previous morning he had had clones under Hange out in the market buying things for the party. Unfortunately, the dimwits had decided that since he didn't tell them to put the stuff in storage seals, they just piled it in, and last night he just shined, verb sp, to his bedroom. Oh crap, the meat, he yelled mentally. If the idiots didn't put the stuff into seals, they probably would have left the meat outside. He ran and checked every bag, and fortunately everything that needed to be placed in the fridge was not in any of the bags. Okay, so they aren't all idiots, they do take after their master after all. As Naruto made his way to the fridge, he opened it and was sucked in. Apparently his clones decided to place a space distortion seal on the fridge, allowing it to become a chasm, sucking in anything that got near its opening, and he was now floating aimlessly in his fridge. Okay, nothing like their master. The reason he hadn't known what his shadow clones had done was his mastery over the technique allowed him to decide when it was that he would process their information. He knew when one was dispelled, but deciding when to learn their held information was useful to avoid information overload, and Kyuubi could not take care of it anymore, because the Kyuubi was no longer in him. Shrugging, he decided now was as good a time as any to get some breakfast. He let an apple float into his maw and floated off in search of the orange juice. Early morning. Sakura woke up with a start, her face flushed and her bed soaked. Stupid Naruto, Sakura yelled mentally. You mean stupid, hung like a horse, Naruto. Shaw, her inner persona added. After a long shower, she changed and left her apartment. She didn't know where, but she had an idea. On the way to wherever, she ran into Ino, who apparently ran into Tenten earlier. They as well had no idea where they were going, but it was in the same general direction. The same awkward giggles were shared like yesterday as they arrived at Naruto's place. After a pregnant pause, Sakura took initiative. Well guys, as Naruto's teammate, I think I'll pay him a friendly visit, as a good teammate should. So you guys can go head to wherever it is that you two are going. Well, as far as I can remember, since both of you are now Junin, Team 7 was disbanded. I on the other hand am often sent out on several missions with him as a support unit. Tenten pointed out. So it's only natural I should practice with Naruto to get in sync with him. Well, while you two argue about teammates, I'm going to see if I can bag me a Hokage hopeful. Ino bluntly stated as she pushed them aside and opened the gate leading to the front door. Sakura and Tenten shared a look and struggled as they both tried to enter at the same time. Ino knocked once and let herself in. Her logic. A knock was all the notice someone needs to prepare, but Kami-sama help you if you don't wait to be let into her house. Hello? Naruto. Darling, your favorite kunoichi is here to visit you. Ino yelled up the staircase, surprised at all the stuff that was on the floor. You see Ino, he's not home, so you two should get out of here now. Tenten scolded. Oh, and would you like to tell us what you would be doing here alone? Sakura questioned Tenten. Well, I'll make him breakfast, he's probably out training and he'll get home hungry. She explained. Great idea. My breakfast date with Naruto would be best if you cooked and served us. Hop did you too. Ino ordered, clapping her hands. Whatever, let's at least make something since we let ourselves in. Sakura said as she walked to the fridge. She noticed the door slightly opened. She pulled the door slowly and jumped out of the way when she felt something slightly tug on her. The others, being the good ninja they were, readied themselves for an attack. But they dropped from their battle-ready stances and gaped at the white cavernous space of Naruto's refrigerator. The pan Ino was getting ready for eggs, that she accidentally dropped when she was under attack, was soon sucked into the fridge. As Naruto contemplated on the things he had encountered inside of his refrigerator that was from last month's takeout, he was hit in the back of the head. Ow, what the hell? He yelled out in surprise as he grabbed the frying pan. Hello, is anyone out there? The three ladies shared a look that had become synonymous with the blonde. What has he gotten himself into this time? Look. Naruto, you eat like an animal, but what's up with your infinite fridge? Sakura yelled into the fridge, just out of range of being sucked in. It was my moronic clones, they have no brains. Aren't shadow clones copies of the user? Tenten questioned. Look, are you going to help me? Or am I just going to be floating aimlessly in the cold? What can we do to help? Ino asked. Is there a seal anywhere on the outside of the fridge? He questioned. They looked and said, no. Idiots must have placed it on the inside. Maybe I should look at their memories. Give me a minute, will you guys? He yelled. Sure enough, one of the clones placed the seal on the bottom of the fridge. Unfortunately, he couldn't make heads or tails of his positioning. Okay guys, I have an idea. Yeah, what do you have in mind? Sakura asked. I can't make out my positioning, so can you guys do something so I know where everything is? I've lost my sense of direction in here. Okay, I'll throw in a couple of kunai, the one with the burning tag will be closest to the floor. Yelled Tenten as she launched 3 kunai into the box. The girls looked at her like she was insane. What, you launched a paper bomb into his fridge? Ino yelled. Yes Ino, I launched an active bomb into my friend's fridge while he's inside. Tenten shook her head. At least I hope it was the dud. Naruto waited for 10 seconds before he saw a black disturbance in the vast white space that was his fridge coming directly from above. He dodged them and positioned himself so he was facing the opening. Okay, when you see me, make sure to pull as hard as you can. The girls waited for about 5 minutes before they heard a loud commotion coming from inside the fridge. Taking it as their cue, the girls took their positions with Sakura as the anchor and Tenten in front. Tenten jumped when a hand almost slapped her across the face. She quickly grabbed it, got him. She yelled and the three pulled, expecting to easily pull out the blonde even without Sakura's enhanced strength, but found the blonde heavier than they would have imagined. Shaw, must be because of that anaconda in his pants. Inner Sakura yelled. So all 3 girls enhanced themselves with chakra and pulled. With what could only be described as a pop, hundreds of Narutos poured out of the fridge, most popping as they hit the rather hard objects in the kitchen, i.e. the sink, dishwasher, stove, etc. But 3 Narutos thought of one thing and one thing only: squishy. These 3 Narutos were face first into some rather personal spaces of their female saviors. One in Ino's sizable bust, one in Tenten's most intimate space, and the other in Sakura's plump bottom. Well, Naruto-kun, I never would have guessed you were an exhibitionist, but I don't mind. Ino purred and squeezed him into her, to only pop in a cloud of smoke. Oh, so this must be the real Naruto. Tenten smiled and blushed as she hugged his head deeper into her crotch for him to pop as well. Now on the inside, Sakura was rather pleased the real Naruto would head for her. Well, let's face it, only attractive feminine feature. Inner Sakura wished he had hit a tad bit lower. Sakura had a facade to keep and she growled out in anger, Naruto no hentai, and decked him, but it too popped. So where's the real Naruto? Ino asked, rather disappointed he wasn't in her chest. Help. They heard again from the fridge. This time his entire upper body was struggling to keep himself from being sucked back in. They jumped up again in the same formation to pull him out, and this time it was as easy as they first anticipated it to be, and pulled out the blonde. He did a quick mid-air somersault and landed softly on the tiled floor. The girls stared rather intently at the man, or most specifically his body. Apparently he rather hated the muggy nights of Konoha's early summers and decided to forego his shirt and pants, and to sleep in boxer briefs. As they traveled down his broad shoulders, flawless pecs, chiseled abs and his. As the girls mentally touched said body parts, all thought processes halted as they traveled down. They stopped at his rather significant bulge in his pants. Not a tenting, just the natural bulge he possessed. Had their mind been working rather than fueling their lust, they would have noted that this bulge was larger than the tents any of their former lovers ever made. Naruto finished, knocking them all out of their thoughts. Could you repeat that? Tenten asked for the girls, all of them sporting noticeable blushes. I said I can't hang out today since I still have some stuff to do today, but we will see each other tomorrow, okay? Well, do you need any help? Sakura asked. She was not going to leave after coming all the way over here. Yeah, I have nothing else to do. Tenten added. Neither do I, the last of the group stated. Really, you want to help? He received enthusiastic nods from the three. Well, I need to marinate the ingredients for the yakitori, as well as make the curry so it has time to rest to let the flavors mingle, then to prepare for the other food. Finally, setting up the entire property for guests and cleaning the house up a bit. It's a mess, he listed off. He noted that their smiles dimmed for a second but still were willing to help. Your place is a mess? Sakura asked, noting that the only thing out of place was a dirty sock. Are you kidding me? Look at that sock. I'm kinda embarrassed to have you three in this sty. You probably think I'm some sort of animal. He finished as he scratched the back of his head, chuckling softly. Had the kunoichi not been there, they would never have believed what he said, but as masters of body language they read that he was truly embarrassed and a little ashamed. Don't worry Naruto, we'll help with your dilemma, Ino said as she smiled at him, putting him back at ease. Tenten. He changed, foregoing his overcoat, replacing it with a frilly light blue apron. On the very bottom of the apron was a scene, depicting orange kits chasing butterflies. Naruto, with the help of Tenten and her mastery knife skills, set off to cut the food up, leaving Sakura and Ino to clean since Naruto decided that his mess of a house needed the most attention. So as the girls put the sock away, and took it one step further and washed it along with its counterpart, Naruto and Tenten chopped food at a rate that would make a seasoned 5-star chef feel like a TV cook. The interesting thing was them trying to figure out on how to get the things out of the fridge. He had made several clones and had them hold on to one as it pulled on the seal. The resulting shrinking forced Naruto to act quickly and destroy his fridge, lest the food become bruised. This resulted in a tidal wave of food. When Tenten questioned why there was more food than needed for a small get-together, he was sure to expect more than the invited guests. After all, the council isn't even invited, but they will be here regardless. They cut 750 kilos of meat and an additional 600 kilos of produce. Fortunately, at that time Anko came in with the alcohol. Unfortunately for her, she had to go back out and get more sake as Naruto used it for the food. It was late in the afternoon and Tenten and several clones were outside tending to one large-sized kettle full of what he called Naruto's special curry, 3 called Lee's special, 6 of ninja heat, 10 of civilian, and 8 of kid style. The Naruto special was only tended by clones as Tenten could not get anywhere near the stuff, and even the clones had to wear suits to tend to it. She asked what the seals on that kettle were for, and the clone responded, "So the curry doesn't corrode the metal." The other kettles had seals as well, but she found out they were space distortion seals similar to the one in the fridge, just not as big. Despite the work, Tenten had a great time. She was amazed at how Naruto could make something as monotonous as cutting meat so fun. She idly wondered what it would have been like if they had actually been on a real date. Anko, Naruto-kun, I'm home. Tenten and Naruto heard from the outside. She raised an eye at this. He only said, "The booze is here." There was a poof, and Tenten could not tell which the clone was, or if the one she was talking to before was a clone. Either way, one of the Narutos left. "Ah, Anko, nice to see you. I was starting to get worried. When I woke up, the refreshments were not here yet. Not that I doubted you, of course. He added, "Well, Naruto-kun, I always please my favorite man. Or woman, that apron you're wearing is confusing me." She cooed, "So where do you want this stuff?" she said as she gestured to the caravan of alcohol. "Well, I ran into a snag. See, I forgot to take into account the amount needed for the food, so I'm gonna need you to go back out for some more sake." Hee hee hee. He chuckled. "How much more?" Naruto flinched slightly under her glare. "Well, I'll have the clones take what I need and then you can see." Dozens of clones appeared and ran to the caravan, emptying a little over half. When she saw this, she hit the one she was talking to over the head, and he popped. "Now Anko." Another Naruto walked up. "The namikaze will still be in your debt, and whatever is left in the wallet will be yours. Now please hand over, Bunta-chan." She handed back the completely empty red frog. He opened it and stuck his head in. The sight of the man, sticking his head inside the mouth of the purse was quite amusing to Anko. Here was the strongest ninja in the world and he was arms deep into a frog purse. "Here it is." Anko barely made out his muffled voice as he pulled out an even larger orange frog. This time 4 times as large as the original, Gamma-chan. And twice, Bunta-chan. This one named, Kichi-chan. She gawked at the size and almost fainted at the amount of ryo that could fit in that damn thing. "Deal," she shouted as she took the frog and snuggled up next to it. "What about the rest?" "Over here." Her and the caravan drivers, followed him to the back of the house, where she noted that dozens of Narutos were building stands. And Ino and Sakura were getting help from their own pair of personal Narutos as they set up lights and banners. He led the caravan just a few feet from the back of the house, where he placed a seal on the ground. It activated, and a large mound of dirt rose from the ground. Naruto formed a Rasengan and slammed it into the mound, holding it so it drilled into the earth. It did not take long for both of them to dig a cellar. They made a game of it to see who could carve the cellar faster. She relied on her spitting acid and her sweetened techniques, he on futon. Unfortunately for Naruto, Anko complained that the Rasengan was cheating, so he was restricted to B-rank jutsu. Eventually a rather large cellar was made and he allowed the caravan inside as they stocked the shelves made of rock. With that done, she left to find more booze, her caravan close behind. Naruto yelled at her retreating form. "Remember, the party starts at around noon, so you have till then." As she walked off, she wondered, kids got balls. But he was never that smart. Then again, this is Naruto. He knows how to get what he wants. "I can't wait for tomorrow." She squealed at the thought. Sakura and Ino. Before they finished washing the troublesome sock, Naruto walked in. "I'm so sorry for having you guys clean like this. I know it should be my problem, but I appreciate it." He grinned at them both. "No problem, Naruto-kun," both answered, giggling that he was still so embarrassed at his home. "Well, I'd like your help in getting the outside decorated, and ready for the guests?" "Of course, lead the way." He walked through his house. They passed Naruto and Tenten, knee-high in produce as they cut food. Naruto was acting goofy and Tenten giggling at his antics as he cried dramatically as he cut open some onions. Eventually the group of 3 made their way out to the backyard. Naruto's house had a good-sized plot of land. He had 4 acres of mostly open space, a few trees here and there, the norm in Konoha. Beyond this clearing was a dense forest that signified the neighboring properties. The girls were impressed. After all, only clan compounds had this much space. They then realized that Yondaime-sama and Kushina-sama probably had big plans for their family. Both girls glanced at each other and both knew that they were thinking the same thing. They then looked sadly at Naruto, who was surveying his land. There was a slight breeze that made his hair sway in the breeze. And even though he had on that frilly apron, they noticed there was an aura of power that seemed comforting to them. You know, they had everything planned out. Ino and Sakura jumped in surprise. If I remember correctly from their daily journals, they planned on erecting a playset for their kids here. He gestured to the ground a few feet from him, his back still turned to them. Dad wrote one day that he wanted 27 kids. He chuckled, and the girls did as well. But Mom wrote in hers the next day that she beat him when he told her that, telling him that she wasn't a baby-making machine. The girls laughed at that. It was widely known, in Konoha at least, that the Yondaime was a goofball when not on the battlefield. So he had to settle for 13. Both Kunoichi sweat dropped. Sakura then noticed something that made her run up to the man. Despite his steady voice and sturdy posture, Naruto was crying hard. Sakura's expression frightened Ino and she too tried to find out what it was that startled Sakura. She walked up to Naruto and stopped as well. It's so weird to talk of them like I know them, Naruto stated, as his tears increased, yet his voice did not break, his posture unmoving. Sure, I have their journals, but I will never know my father's voice, or my mother's laugh. The girls were now crying too. His aloof nature often made them forget that he never had parents. He never talked about his growing up alone. I will never know their touch, their smell. I know they loved me and wherever they are, still do, but it seems hollow. Now his voice cracked, and the girls embraced him crying even harder. And I just can't help but wonder if I am being too selfish for wanting to know these things, even though they sacrificed themselves for me and the village. I just want them here. He started to sob loudly and his body trembled. No, Naruto, it isn't selfish. It's okay for you to want these things. Ino sobbed out. Yes, Naruto, it's only natural, let it out, sweetie. Sakura explained, rubbing his back, letting him cry it out. She had a feeling he'd been holding all this in, and he needed to let it out. It wasn't safe for his well-being. They stood there for about an hour holding him as he cried, whispering to him that it was okay, and he wasn't selfish. When he recomposed himself, he thanked them and kissed the crown of their heads. Thank you, he whispered again, and he smiled brightly. Well, how about some help in figuring out what I need to do out here? I have a basic idea of what needs to be done, but I have no sense of style when decorating for a party. He stated. The women thought it best to not bring it up again if he wasn't going to mention it. And so they started bombarding him with ideas on what they had in mind. Ino's ideas were the most extravagant, especially when Naruto said money was no object. Sakura, while the most modest, still had ideas that would break the Hyuga family bank. In the end, they followed Naruto's initial idea for a festival theme. While odd, they agreed that it would be the easiest to set up on such short notice. So with the help of shadow clones they hung lights and lanterns. Naruto said that it would be easiest to serve that much food from stalls, so several were made. More than they thought necessary. When they asked him, he replied, "For festival games. What kind of festival doesn't have festival games?" Eventually Anko came and left, and Tenten came out back to cook. The girls had fun despite all the work. All because of a certain blonde and the secret he held, a secret they would find out tomorrow afternoon. Hinata woke up earlier than usual. She was excited all of yesterday after Naruto had invited her to lunch. But when she woke, she was tense and rather worried. Due to her constant shadowing of the man when he was younger, she was certain she could read the man. The Naruto from yesterday seemed off, but she soon dropped the matter as she had to get clan business out of the way if she wanted to leave for lunch. First things first, she had to greet her father. "Ah, Hinata-sama, I was informed to invite you to a get-together that Naruto is having tomorrow on his estates," Neji told Hinata as they met in the halls of the main house. "Thank you, Neji-ni. Naruto has already informed me yesterday. He told me to tell you he appreciated the gesture on your part, but he forgot he had to ask me something." Hinata replied. Neji bowed and left. He still had to train the branch family members. When she came to her father's door, she steadied herself. The training sessions that she shared with Naruto had greatly increased her confidence, but there were times in which she relapsed. Talking to her father and Naruto outside of training were generally the main causes. With one last deep breath, she knocked, waited for a response, slid the door open and stepped in, kneeling again before her father. With a deep genuflection she greeted him. "Good morning, father." "Good morning, daughter." Hiyashi replied. "It is still early, Hinata, why are you up so soon?" "I wish to go out for lunch for personal reasons, so as to not interfere with my duties I decided to start early." Hinata replied. When he questioned her, she had to fight the urge to stutter. Hiyashi was glad that his daughter changed. He was worried at first since she had not become the proper Hyuga. But instead Hinata had in a way adapted said traits while still being gentle and kind-hearted. His idea changed when he saw his daughter show a proper Hyuga front when she was training with Naruto in the family dojo. "Father?" Hiyashi was startled when his daughter broke him of his thoughts. "Ah yes, you may go." Hinata stood, and before she headed out her father called out to her, "Hinata? Are you having lunch with anyone or alone?" Hinata stumbled slightly and replied, "With Naruto." She blushed and quickly escaped. Hiyashi prayed things went well for his eldest daughter. "I'll be right back, let me change and get an apron," Naruto told Tenten after he was pulled from out of his fridge. He made his way past the bags and up his stairs, where he made a clone. With his mental commands given, both started to get change. His clone had left his flak jacket and cloak, replacing it with a frilly blue apron walking back downstairs. The real Naruto started to get ready. He took his time, he was stalling and he knew it. Alright, now the cloak, perfect? The real Naruto muttered to himself as he slipped on his cloak trying to rub out the wrinkles. Today was an important day. Today Naruto would confront Hinata. He had known for some time that she had held feelings for him. He figured it out the year he came from his training trip with Jiraiya, but played the fool as to not bring up such a subject while his village was at war. Since the village's strongest squad consisted of the Konoha 12 and their senseis, bringing up such a topic would ruin team efficiency. He sighed. Well, no use wasting time here, Naruto thought as he leapt out of his bedroom window, landing on his front gates, and hopped off landing gracefully on the street below. Once he was sure the girls couldn't see him, he decided to just walk to the Hyuga compound. Along the way he took in the sights of his beloved village, city really, he never understood why it was called a village since Konoha was about 2/3 the size of the capital of the Land of Fire. A lot had changed in the 10 years since he had finished his training with Jiraiya. The most obvious was that the Hokage Tower had grown in size. It was now slightly taller than the outcropping of the Hokage Monument. This was because the village itself grew in size. Unfortunately, that required for the village proper to grow. That was a pain, as the best Doden users the village had to offer, including the Hokage herself, had to move the wall from its original position in such a way that would not harm the integrity of the wall, but be fast enough to avoid leaving the village's defense weakened. Then they would have to add to the wall to compensate for the larger area it was protecting. The entire process took about half a year with ninja on the job 24/7, alternating when chakra exhaustion set in. Fortunately, the case cage sent several platoons to compensate for the lack of usable shinobi. He was idling remembering the team of Sunaku no Ichi who he was in charge of during the build. They were absolutely serious about their work, but when they had downtime they could not keep their hands to themselves. His thoughts wandered to the time when they had tried to team up, since it seemed, to them, going at it alone was useless when trying to vie for Naruto's attention. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts when he was hit in the gut by a small child. Ouch! The small boy cried. He had come running around the corner of the street and ran into Naruto. Hey, are you okay? I know the jacket is pretty hard. Naruto bent at the knee to get a good look at the kid's forehead, noticing red. He frowned when he saw a large cut. It was sure to scar if not treated properly. The boy started inhaling deeply, a telltale sign of an incoming tantrum. Matsu-kun, don't run to where I can't see you. A middle-aged woman scolded as she turned the corner, stopping as she saw her son talking to the son of the Yondaime and vessel for the Kyuubi with a bleeding forehead. When he saw his mother, Matsu started to wail. Matsu, see what you did. I'm so sorry about my son Namikaze-sama. Please forgive him. The woman apologized. Naruto noticed the slight tension in her posture when she laid eyes on him. Not to worry, ma'am, no harm done to me. I should apologize to you, I'm sorry, he told her with a small bow, as he was still kneeling. Now Matsu, that's your name, right? Young Matsu nodded, trying to hide his tears. After all, a shinobi was talking to him. Well, Matsu-kun, I'm going to use my healing jutsu so my hand will grow green and feel kind of hot, okay? You think you can be a big boy long enough to fix your cut? Matsu, who had wanted to be a shinobi just like his uncle, did not want to show a shinobi weakness. He was in pain, but he had to act tough like his uncle Ibiki. He gave a stiff nod to the man and noticed his hand was encased in a pale green glow, and he placed it on his forehead. At first Matsu was curious. The man said hot. At best this was just warm, so he gave a small smirk. He was underestimated, he thought. Naruto knew that look. Matsu had never been healed with a medical jutsu. The warmth was just the disinfection. The real pain of the jutsu was the bonding of the flesh. It was essentially seared together again, minus the scar. He couldn't blame the boy. Naruto picked up on the boy's fascination with ninja, and if he could take a guess, this kid was a Morino. The fact that this kid was pretty tall for a 6-year-old was a large hint. He guessed this was Ibiki's nephew, and from what Ibiki had told Naruto about the squirt, he wanted to be head of the interrogations department. But he got in trouble when he was found binding the family cat to a tree. Fortunately for the creature, they found him before Matsu tried to extract information out of him. Naruto continued sanitizing the area and pressed on. When he started to close the wound, He saw the boy wince and Naruto saw that he was going to cry again. It's almost done, Matsu, just hang on a little while longer, you're doing just fine. Naruto told the boy as he grabbed hold of the boy's shoulder and gave it a reaffirming squeeze. The mother looked on in fascination at the heir of the Yondaime was treating her Matsu so tenderly. She hated to admit, but she often treated the boy with a sneer or two when he was young. And despite all his works for the good of the village, she was still weary of him. After all, there were rumors that all his battles required the use of the demon's power. But seeing the man treating her son the way a father would made her rethink her previous views on the boy. Okay, done. See, Matsu, you made it. Keep it up and you will make a fine shinobi. He had seen the look on the mother's face when he told Matsu he would make a great ninja. She was not happy with the encouragement this man was giving him, regardless if he helped Matsu. Her baby was still just that, a baby. He didn't need to thoughts of becoming a ninja. If your mother signs all the release forms. He added in that last part to quell the rising anger in the mother. He learned a long time ago a mother's killing intent could greatly dwarf that of a shinobi when her child was involved. Wait, you need permission to be a ninja? Matsu asked, shocked. His uncle never told him that. Oh yeah, your mom gets final say on whether or not you can join, so I suggest you be real nice and listen to your mother all the time if you want a shot. The woman gave a small giggle at the face her son made at hearing he had to listen to his mother, all the time. Thank you, Namikaze-sama. Again, please forgive my son for his misbehavior. The woman bowed. Naruto is fine. And no, it was my fault. Really, I should have been on alert. He bowed deeper to the woman. The way you handled that was amazing, Naruto-san. You'll make a wonderful father and a fine husband. Good afternoon. The woman bowed once more, left. Bye, mister. Matsu waved back. Remember, behave for your mother. I will. Naruto watched the mother and son walk down the street and sighed. That last comment made his heart ache. He was tapped on the shoulder and turned to see no one. What the hell? He felt a tapping on his opposite shoulder and turned to be greeted by nothing again. Hinata had left the compound to deliver something to the Hokage and from around the corner had heard Naruto's voice. She watched as he dealt with the child, very tenderly. It was moments like these that made Hinata positive this was the man that she loved. This wasn't the loser, the Kyuubi, the knucklehead, nor was he the next Hokage. This Naruto was the tender Naruto who put others before himself. So when the mother left, Hinata decided to have some fun, so she tapped his left shoulder, hiding behind his right when he turned. She tapped the right and hid behind his left. All of a sudden she felt a tap on her right shoulder, turned and saw no one. Turning back to Naruto, he was gone, then turned around fully and saw Naruto was right behind her. Naruto had gotten behind Hinata the moment she tried sneaking up on him, and when he reversed her prank he was rewarded with her light-hearted laugh. Hello, Hinata, nice to see you're having fun today. Well, Naruto, I was just going to deliver something to the Hokage and saw that you were talking to that boy there. That was very sweet, and she is right, UW would make a wonderful husband. Hinata replied. She started off strong but reverted when she thought of Naruto as a husband, specifically her husband. There was a short pause between the both of them, until Naruto decided to continue. Will you have something else to do, or can you drop it off and then we go for lunch? He asked. No, this is the last thing. What do you have in mind? Naruto had thought long and hard on where he wanted to go. Ichiraku's was obviously out. He wanted a place that gave privacy but was in a public space. Well, there was a new restaurant that just opened near the academy. Kind of wanted to try it out when I saw it. Hinata mentally frowned. The place was a family restaurant, not really a date locale. But to be fair to Naruto, he had never said it was a date. They went out to eat often, but it was always after training, so she had hoped this was different since they had not trained today. That sounds great, shall we? She replied. Let's. As they walked to the tower, they both talked about what they had done recently. It had been a while since they had talked, and now was a great time to catch up. Tsunade was working on some forms when she heard Naruto talking with someone. She stopped what she was doing and waited for him to come in, only to be surprised when Hinata came in and turned in her research on a new medical technique that required the Jukin. Hinata, did I hear Naruto out there? The Hokage asked. Yes, we were just going out to lunch. Should I send for him? Would you? The young woman nodded and went outside to call in the man. Yes, Ba-chan? When he spoke, Hinata decided she would wait in the hallway. Naruto, we have reports of several caravans, including a circus. Oddly enough, Near the village, all from different lands but all combining into one larger caravan. They seem to be a civilian day's walk from Konoha. Does this have anything to do with you? If it doesn't, I will have to stop them. They do have a large escort. Naruto's only reply was his now infamous grin and responded, Ba-chan, if anything happens I will take personal responsibility for this, but if you must know, this is part of my plan. Anything else? Wait, do you know? I have some very strong theories. Well, with your luck I wouldn't trust your gut instinct. He snickered at the face she made. Kid, if there was anything I learned from my bad luck, it's that when you're involved my bad luck is gone and my intuition is at its best. That said, does anyone else know? Anko knows, she's the only one though. Is that all? Just be careful, what you are about to do is huge, and you are going to be stepping on the council's toes with this. Make sure you know what you are doing. Dismissed. Naruto walked out the door and rejoined Hinata as they made their way to the restaurant, picking up their previous conversation. Before Tsunade could continue her work, she felt Jiraiya walking up the wall of the tower. She decided to get back to work. So Tsunade's still not gonna tell me what the kids got in store. I can only assume it has to do with the emissaries that Nami, Oni, and Yuki are sending? Jiraiya asked as he walked through her window. It does, was her simple reply. After nearly a minute of pen scratching, he started to become impatient. Well, what? She stamped a file and placed it in her outbox, picking up a new one from her inbox. HMPH. Whatever. I don't care. I'm sure whatever he's hiding it will be lame. Jiraiya pouted. Almost, she said mentally, she was trying to coerce him into a bet. Care to make a wager out of it, Jiraiya? Sure, gotcha. After a great lunch and after they both caught up, they decided to go for a walk. It led them to a rather secluded area of the village near the back of the Hokage Tower. Naruto turned to Hinata. Nay, Hinata, I have something to tell you. Hinata gave him a curious look. He was beyond nervous, and she picked up on it quick. Sure, Naruto. What is it? First, Hinata, I want you to know I have never been so conflicted in my life. All week I have been racking my brain trying to figure out how to tell you this. Frankly, I don't think I have ever thought this hard in my life. Hinata started breathing heavily. I've tried to think of how to do this from every angle I can think of and try to play it out in my head. Every single time I hate the outcome. Her eyes widened. What action would lead him to hate each outcome? He paused and looked at the sky. Hinata saw that he had a pained expression on his face. She was about to say something when he spoke. I've known you held feelings for me. She gasped. So I'm just going to come out and say it, Hinata? I'm married. From his position on top of his father's head, Naruto watched the sunrise, a rather cliché thing to do, but he enjoyed it. He had been awake since last night, just sitting here looking out over the village since his confession to Hinata. Flashback. So I'm just going to come out and say it, Hinata? I'm married. Naruto was ashamed. He couldn't even look her in the eye. She deserved that, but he couldn't even do it. He was expecting the worst, a Jukin strike to the heart, a slap, a verbal lashing, but no, he heard, yes Naruto, I accept. And was enveloped in a hug, her crying muffled by his coat. Hinata, you don't understand. My Maria, he told her as he tried to pry her off. Yes, I know, father told me Wednesday, you will be allowed to repopulate your clan. Hinata gushed. Hinata, please let me finish. He also told you I was limited to 3 wives. I have already married my 3 wives. Hinata watched as he got on his knees and bowed as deep as he could get. Please Hinata, forgive me, for leading you on. It was never my intention. Please forgive me. End flashback. What are you thinking about, Naruto-sama? Naruto turned around to see a pink toad hopping onto his head. Despite his semi-state of depression, Naruto couldn't help but smile at her. Hello Gamare. How are your father and grandfather? The small toad puffed up in anger, hopping onto his lap. Why is it always about them? I visit my future husband and all he wants to talk about is Tusan and Bunta-Gigi? How about, how are you darling? Or, darling, let's go out. HMPH. Mid-rant, the little toad sat on her hind legs, and now had her arms crossed, turning her back to him. 1. Naruto sighed. Ray-chan, how many times are we going to have to go through this? I'm already married, and while you are beautiful, you are much too young. I watched you hatch, for goodness sake. Ray turned around, about to protest about the age difference, like she always did, before she was cut off. Look, Ray-chan, when you get old enough to marry, I'll be much too old for you. I'm sure you can find someone much better than me your age. The toad whined, but Naruto darling, there is no one better than you. This little toad just wasn't getting it. Fine, Ray-chan. Grow up some more, and then if you still feel the same we can figure something out, I promise. He was sure she was just going through a phase and that it would pass. Unfortunately for him, he gave his word to her. He just hoped his luck held out till then. This was Kichi's little girl after all. Well, Ray-chan, did you send my message? Yes, Naruto-sama. I even stuck around for a while like you told me to. They met the threat and dealt with it before they met with the other leaders. The mistresses intervened when they attacked the last car. Naruto let out a small growl unnoticed by the Gamare. So, as a reward, can I have a kiss? Sure, Ray-chan. She wasn't expecting a yes. Let me just burn this pound of chocolate-covered grubs first, okay? Well, you don't have to waste them. After all, when we're married I can have all the kisses I want, right? So I'll take those grubs off your hands. Naruto chuckled as he handed over the bag and she poofed away. He sat there for the next few hours watching as the village came to life. Shop keeps opening up, early shoppers hoping to snatch the best deals. When the village seemed at its busiest, he saw children running through the crowds to get to class. It was at this time that Naruto saw Tsunade walking with Shizune and their pig Taunton in tow towards the tower. Tsunade saw him and waved at him. He responded in kind. He kept watch over the village, not thinking of anything important. He had his clones finishing up the final touches to whatever was needed in his house. He had nothing to do but wait. His wives were coming, as were his friends, who coincidentally were leaders of their respective nations. Off in the distance from his position he could see the signs of a rather large group coming down the road that led into the village. He stood up and vanished. After she waved good morning to Naruto, Tsunade walked into her office. When they entered, Shizune asked the pig with them where it was she wanted to stay today, since she had small beds in both offices. They asked every morning because they couldn't have a pig trotting back and forth between the two offices. Taunton walked over to Tsunade and plopped down at her feet. It seemed she wanted to keep the head honcho company. Well, Tsunade-sama. Shizune started taking out a small notebook from her yukata's sleeve. Today you have a meeting with the council in regards to Naruto-kun. You have to oversee the plans the civilian council have set forth. You have an appointment with the Anbu to talk about their new budget. Then you have to sign off on the mission requests coming in from bird, bear and tea countries. Finally, while not for another few months, I think it would be best if you start overseeing the prospective graduating genin. Shizune finished breathing deeply. That was quite a mouthful. Tsunade sighed. She hated all the bureaucracy that came with the job. Fine, give me the mission requests. I'll get those out of the way, and then the civilian report. I'm sure they want more money. I'll just cut it up a bit. Very well, Tsunade-sama, the assistant said and left to find the scrolls. Tsunade looked at the small pig at her feet. So Taunton, what ya up to? The pig looked up at her mistress and oinked a few times. You don't say? Tsunade responded. Well, what did that pig, no offense, have to say for himself? Shizune walked in at this point, her master enthralled in the pig's oinks. That two-timing bastard, telling you he was single and just having piglets. Taunton nodded in agreement. Tsunade-sama, I have the papers here. What very few people knew was that Tsunade could understand Taunton. Shizune could not. She would only ask the small pig questions in which there were two outcomes. Oh yes, Shizune, bring them in. Maybe later Taunton can tell you about the bastard who was using her. The thought of her listening to the pig tell a story made Shizune's eye twitch. Yeah, that sounds. Yeah. With that, Shizune left the Hokage to her work. A few hours later she was startled to see Naruto appear in her office. Unfortunately, since she wasn't expecting him, the winds that the Hiraishin kicked up threw all her papers in the air and broke the windows. Ba-chan, it's time. Kotetsu and Izumo were bored out of their minds. For some reason the Hokage had taken a shine to both of them and they had become her personal errand boys. The only way they could get out of replacing her furniture, bringing her sake, and other annoying tasks, was to be on gate duty. The only thing that made this better was that Tsunade wasn't screaming in their ear all day, but husked barely more tolerable. Izumu, I'm bored. Kotetsu whined. Yeah? So? Want a cookie? What the hell do I care? Izumo responded. This was the fifth time in the last 20 minutes that his partner whined. Sometimes he wondered why he hung out with this idiot. Do you have one? 'Cause I cool, hear that? Kotetsu stopped. Izumo turned to him, his face one of horror. Aw man, gross. I don't want to hear your damn farts. Get the fuck outta here. He yelled, pulling his chin-length bodysuit to cover his nose, giving him a Kakashi-like look. "No, you idiot, we have company, down the road." Kotetsu stood up and prepared himself to greet the visitors. Normally he wouldn't get up, but he could sense this was big. When Izumo finally stood up, he turned his head. Down the road he saw a large elephant heading towards them, trumpeting its arrival. At this point the citizens closest to the gate heard the commotion and stopped what they were doing to find out what was going on. "Halt, state your purpose here in Konoha." Kotetsu stopped the elephant, addressing the young woman riding the beast. "Well, silly, we are here to provide entertainment. Why else would I be riding an elephant?" The woman giggled as she slid off the beast. The men blushed at her choice of attire, a rather tight red corset, stockings and a dark blue blazer, and a top hat and whip to finish the ensemble. Izumo, Kotetsu, that is enough, let them in. They turned to see the Hokage walking up to them, her assistant and Pig to her left and Naruto to her right. They did as were ordered and the woman called out to her train. The civilians marveled at the sight. It had been many years since the last circus came to the village, and the children marveled at the sight of the foreign beasts. The woman walked up to the Hokage and bowed. "Hokage-sama, it is nice to meet you. My name is Katsuyu, too, and I am the ringleader of this circus. We were employed by Naruto-sama here, till the end of the weekend. I was just wondering where we are to set up," she asked, her green eyes looking between the two of them. "Yes, Naruto, were exactly is an entire circus supposed to pitch their tents?" Her eyebrow twitching. "Oh well, in the Namikaze estates of course. Naruto-kun, you only have a few acres." Shizune pointed out, Taunton oinking in agreement, Tsunade knowing Taunton knew, because of the pig's wild romps on his property. "Well, I guess I can give these to you then." He pulled out a file folder. "These are copies of the deeds to the neighboring properties. I bought them using dummy business accounts. That should be proof enough that I own them. So Katsuyu-chan, you can follow the clone to the area you can set up. Don't worry, everything is ready for you, I made sure of it." The ringleader followed the clone that appeared and led her circus to the Namikaze estates. Some of the kids followed them, getting rides from the safer animals. "Well, Naruto, you have been busy, haven't you?" Haruno Ume called out. She was informed of the caravan and had been watching the interaction. She was miffed he outwitted the council, especially her, since she owned most of the property that was around his estate. She was going to gift it to him when he married Sakura, but then a man representing a retired merchant from Sunek came and offered her 3 times the property's worth. In cash, she would have been a fool to not accept. "Ume, I see the council is as vigilant as ever," Tsunade called out. She didn't hate the council, and they always played by the rules, politically at least. Really, the only members she hated were the third's advisors and Danzo. Oh, how she hated those 3. "Well, Tsunade-sama, we wanted to see what the commotion was about," Inoichi said. "I assume this is what Naruto was hiding from us?" "Oh no, honorable council, there is much more," Naruto said with his normal grin. He motioned for the rest of the caravan to come in. A large carriage came forward escorted by samurai, infantry and ninja. All had their faces hidden. The samurai wearing the insignia for Demon Country. The infantry had banners for the Land of Waves. A little more than half of the ninja wore headbands from the new and not yet recognized village hidden in the snow, and the rest of the ninja had no mark. As Naruto prepared himself, he looked around. Most of the village was here, as well as his friends, with the exception of Hinata. Seeing the look that Hiyashi was giving him, Naruto knew he knew. He wasn't mad at her or disappointed, he was actually glad she told someone. It would be bad for her to hold things in. And while that look was not of hatred, Naruto could tell Hiyashi was not happy with him, but who could blame him? He had broken his daughter's heart. What father wouldn't wish harm on the man who did that to their baby? He saw the girls who were helping him yesterday looking on in interest. He saw Shikamaru and his fiancée. Somehow Naruto knew that Shikamaru knew. He could read his lips mouthing out, "troublesome blonde." Of course Tamari responded, thinking he was talking about her. With one last deep breath he yelled, so that the people gathered could hear, "Konoha, allow me to introduce the matriarchs of the Namikaze Uzumaki clan." The ensuing silence was deafening. The council, with the exception of Hiyashi, Shibi and Tsunade, stood there flabbergasted. Jiraiya was probably the most surprised, since he had just given Tsunade all the profits from his last book and future Icha-Icha follow-ups. With that, 3 women dressed in elaborate kimonos came out of the carriage with the help of some of the unidentified ninja. Their kimonos were of some of the finest silks that some of the people in attendance had ever seen. The women themselves were quite beautiful, as many of the civilians noticed, as did the ninja of Konoha, but they hid it better. Ume was the first to come to and spoke for most of the women, and to be honest, some men in attendance. What? How could you be married to these women? Haruno-san, these aren't my wives. Naruto corrected. Please. He gestured for the women to continue. They bowed to him and rolled out a small carpet and then a two-step ladder. Then 3 red blurs jumped out of the car, completely jumping past the steps and rug, and landing gracefully next to Naruto and enveloping him in a massive, bone-breaking hug. The 3 women wore a variation of the same top. It consisted of a blouse, 3, that came down at least the hips, since each woman wore it at different lengths. It had intricate designs that wrapped around each woman, originating from their right shoulder, crossing their bosom, wrapping around their waist and ending on their left hip. Each hip was emblazoned with the same emblem that Naruto wore on the back of his battle cloak, the 9 orange foxtails converging in a spiral, serving as a backdrop for golden waves. Naruto, you asshole, we missed you. The woman standing in front of him said after she gave him a passionate kiss. Her blouse was used as a thigh-high dress. It was a dark tan, almost brown color, allowing the turquoise embroidered design to stand out. And to avoid any embarrassing positions, she wore tight shorts underneath. Her straight shoulder-length red hair was almost pink, but not bubblegum pink like the medic a few yards from her. She had large brown eyes that conveyed a level of hot-headedness not seen since before Naruto exited the academy. The one to his right added, "Yes, it was quite boring without you around," as she nibbled his neck. She wore her blouse as a white coat ending at her knees, the design gold. It was split down the middle, showing that she bound her chest with the same wrappings as Kurenai and exposing her toned stomach. She finished it off with white baggy pants that hid her feet. Her hair was a vibrant crimson that fell down to the small of her back, her golden eyes half-lidded, that only got significantly wider when she looked at her husband. Finally, the redhead to his left said, "Yes, Naruto-sama, I felt lost without you," as she played with his ear. Her violet variation of the blouse, of normal blouse length, had black markings. She wore black shorts that came to just above her knee. Her red hair was in between the light red-hued woman and the violet crimson of the second. Her glasses framed red eyes darting back and forth, trying to observe everything around her. "We cannot recognize these marriages, you have no credible witnesses, and any documentation you have can be faked." Heishi finally spoke up. He would do what was in his power to help Hinata in any way, not that he would allow her to marry him now, as some sort of consolation, but he would not allow Naruto happiness. "While I was witness to his first marriage," a voice came from inside the carriage as an old man stepped out, helped by one of the soldiers from the Land of Waves. He had a rather dark complexion, his white beard and hair standing out against it. His robes held cool colors, blues and greens of various hues. It had taken a few moments for her to realize, but Sakura knew this man. Her shock had her ignore the people who followed him out as well as forget her teammate. "Tatazuna-san? Hello Sakura, it is nice to see that you've grown into a fine young woman." A woman replied. When Sakura turned to her, she was speechless. "Tsunami-san?" Sakura couldn't believe that she looked so young. "Wait, this is the little girl that came to our country 13 years ago? Well, you have grown into a beautiful woman. Wouldn't you agree, Inari?" he asked the young man next to him. I guess," Inari said, the blush on his face noticeable to all present. "Tsunami-san, you look great. I'd say you look younger than when I last saw you. But what are you all doing here?" the pink-haired medic asked. "Oh, we are here as the witnesses to Naruto-kun's first marriage." Tsunami replied, walking over to Naruto and kissing him on the cheek, whispering, "Hello dear," to the man. "You see Sakura, I am the ruler of the Land of Waves, not the daimyo but leader." To make a long story short, after you guys helped us, we started asking question and found out the daimyo of our nation was working with Gatu. The little pig paid him off and the daimyo turned a blind eye. So we led a revolt with the help of some of the other villages and threw him out. As the quasi-leader, the people elected me as the leader. So here I am, the new leader of the Land of Waves," the old man said excitedly. "Hello old man," Naruto said aloud, since he couldn't escape the hugs of his wives, not that he wanted to. "I leader of the Land of Waves," and his family was witness to the marriage between Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto and Tayuya. Tazuna proclaimed. Damn straight you drunken old fart. Tayuya, the woman hugging Naruto's front, yelled. How can we be sure this isn't some favor that Naruto called in? It's obvious he shares ties with you from before your ascension to power? Tessai said, the plans that he shared with Ume were falling apart before his eyes. Well, you have my word, but if my word cannot be taken, I don't think I would like to continue the free trade agreement with a country where my word is meaningless. But if papers are what you need, I hold the marriage license with my signature, dated 10 years ago. Tazuna scoffed, handing the papers to Tsunade, who passed them off to Shizune. As Shizune was checking the authenticity of the papers, the Kona had 12. Mine was accepted wholeheartedly when she wed Shino, was aghast. Naruto, the knucklehead, was married. They stared at him as he was in the middle of a four-way hug, laughing and kissing the three redheads. Kiba was the first to speak. Lucky bastard. Wish I was the last of my clan. That though was nipped in the bud as Sume and Hana gave him a dark look, and Hana's triplets, Kuromaru and Akamaru, bit him hard. Not at all illogical, really. Shino spoke up, ignoring his teammates' whimpers as the fangs dug in deeper. That would explain why he was rather distant with Sakura and as after his return with Jiraiya-sama. As a married man myself though, I must wonder how he could sustain a marriage if he was here the entire time. It would be almost impossible. Mind shifted Nyoko to her other hip. It sure is difficult when either one of us is on a week-long mission. I can't imagine what it would be like if he was gone for 10 years. I can't imagine what it must be like to share him though. I know I couldn't, Tamari added to that train of thought. PSSH. 'Cause you're so damn possessive. Shikamaru said. His reward was 2 slaps to the head, one from Tamari and one from his mother, who was nearby. How she did it was a mystery since she was 10 feet away. I thought I was making headway with him. Tenten finally said, still in a semi-trance-like state. Mine rubbed her back to try and calm her down. Tenten didn't feel like crying but was sad. Well, he was never receptive to any of the advances though, and knowing him, I guess he could not just tell them to back off and hurt their feelings. In the end though, his roundabout method was rather harsh to any woman that tried to get close. Neji sounded off, glancing to where the Hyuga estates were located. Hinata hadn't told him why she was so despondent, but she told him it was related to Naruto. Now he understood why she was like this. Well, I thought he was gay. Ino said. Choji choked on the carrots he was eating. Well, I did. He wasn't falling for my feminine charm, and no man can resist it. Everyone except Kiba, who now had his sister hitting him upside the head, gave her a weird look. Okay, no man who is taken can fall for my charms. I'm not taken. Lee and Neji said simultaneously. She huffed and turned away in annoyance. Why wouldn't he tell us? Why wouldn't he tell me? I was his teammate, why couldn't he trust me? We'll find out later, Sakura. He still has some stuff to do. Frankly, if Tazuna is only the witness to the first marriage, what about the other 2? And what of your other marriages? Danzo asked when Shizune confirmed the license. Well, instead of doing it one at a time, why not get them out of the way? Ladies? Naruto asked his wives' maidens as they helped out 2 other women. A blonde-haired woman walked out, her robes very similar to that of a Miko. The other was taller and had dark hair. I, daimyo of the land of snow, Kazuhana Koyuki, was witness to Naruto's second marriage. Between Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto and Mitsune Hisoka, 5. I, Shiin priestess of Demon Country, was witness to his third marriage. Between Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto and Karen, the 2 leaders said. And we agree with Tazuna Dono. If our word is not taken at face value, we feel our alliance is in danger. However, as a sign of good faith, we still have the appropriate papers. Shiin said for her and Koyuki, who was currently greeting all his wives and the man himself. Hello Naruto-kun, so good to see you again, it's been far too long. Koyuki said. Yes, it has. Koyuki, how's that village coming along? Excellent. I am proud to announce that the contributions that your family provided us has brought our little ninja village good fortunes. It was then that Shiin got to talk to Naruto. She was handing the last papers to Tsunade, so she walked over to the family. The Hokage was breaking up the crowd to get back to work, but not before a Naruto clone reminded her that there would be a party all weekend at his place. The only ones left were the ones who personally knew the blonde, including the Ichirakus, who were flabbergasted. Well kid, it feels like I don't know you anymore? I can't imagine what your friends feel like. Jiraiya told him as he walked up to him. He felt betrayed. How the hell had this kid been married for 10 years? I guess I have some explaining to do, huh? He asked out loud. His wives nodded, his friends looked hurt. Even Tsunade seemed disappointed. I guess I should get this out of the way first before I start explaining. He motioned for his remaining servants, who hadn't gone ahead to prepare the house, to open the final carriage. Incidentally, it was the maidens, but they changed clothes. How? No one knew, not even their lords, but they were now in casual wear, but still of a finer quality than most. They stood at attention in front of the dorm, the unidentified nin making a sort of path towards the Namakazes. With one final nod, the woman opened the door. At first nothing happened, and the Konoha nins where serps rised. Before one could voice their opinion, though, a small stampede ran out headed right for the still hugging husband and wives, all shouting, "Tou-san." Matsu, eldest son of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan, was a precocious 10-year-old boy. He had lots of toys. His favorite is action samurai Mitsurugi. He shared his possessions with his siblings, so long as they asked, of course. And as the eldest, he took it upon himself to protect his brothers and sisters and his mothers. He knew it wasn't normal for him to have 3 mothers, but he was raised with the knowledge that both Hisoka and Karen loved him unconditionally like Tayuya did, and he was extremely grateful for it. He was lying on his bed staring at the ceiling, which had a map of the 5 elemental countries. His father modified this painting to show its exact location on the map. It showed that they were just a day and a half away from their father's home village of Konoha. Flashback. After dinner, about a week ago, Naruto led Matsu into the backyard. He wanted to tell his son something important. "Matsu, next week I'm going to be gone." A bit startled that it came up on such short notice, Matsu asked, "Is it a dangerous mission?" Matsu looked up at his father. The cool early autumn breeze made his father's coat flutter in the breeze. "It's not exactly a mission, but it has the most at stake. You know your mothers, and I told you guys we were moving? You said to Konoha, right? The place you grew up. You're going to be the new Hokage." Taking a knee before his son, looking him straight in his green eyes, Naruto continued, "Listen, Matsu, whatever happens next week, just know that I'm proud of you. I know that you will make a great clan head." Why are you telling me this? Matsu was a bit scared by the sudden change in mood. "I might have grown up in Konoha, but I have a lot of enemies in that village. By some sick twist of fate, I have more enemies in my home village than I do outside of it. That is the reason you and your siblings were raised here in Bear Country. It took me this long to make sure that everything was just right for people to know that I have a family that I would give me life for." Matsu hugged his father. "Don't leave us, Dad. I love you. I don't want you to leave us." Matsu sobbed into his father's chest. Realizing that he scared his son, Naruto felt like an ass. "I won't, Matsu, it's a promise of a lifetime." Flashback end. He had been awake for about an hour when his door gently opened. He knew who it was. It was one of his nannies. They always came in around this time to wake him up. Treated like family, the 3 sisters were once a top assignation squad from the now defunct Hot Springs village. Midori, Saki and Rini were very beautiful. This morning it was Saki, the middle sister, who came to wake him. She was gentle and soft-spoken. Her ever-permanent light tan added to the demure appearance. She had dark hair and chocolate brown eyes, and Matsu was old enough to know they were very attractive. Especially since they came dressed in their nighties. "Matsu-kun. It's morning. Time to wake up, Matsu-kun," she whispered as she neared the boy. "I'm already up, Saki nay. Just worried about Dad." The woman walked up to him and hugged him to her chest. The boy blushed considerably, and it did not go unnoticed by the woman. "Naruto-sama will be fine. He has worked for the last 10 years to make sure that his family will stay safe during such an important transition. Now get ready, Matsu-kun, and come down for breakfast. I believe Hisoka-sama is cooking today." Hearing that his mother Hisoka was cooking made the boy rush to the bathroom. It was a known fact that Hisoka was possibly the greatest cook on the planet. He didn't know why, but she knew tons of recopies by heart. And could cook anything. Giggling at the young boy's eagerness, Saki walked out to wake up the smaller children next. "What do you think Naruto-sama is doing now?" Karen asked. She had been changing but did not get very far. She was staring out the window in the direction of Konoha. Knowing shithead, he's probably inadvertently flirting with some girl, who he hasn't told that he's been married for years. "Idiot," Tayuya grumbled. "Even if he is, he won't do anything about it. He would never leave us. And if he even tries to marry another woman, I will kill him myself," Hisoka answered with conviction, and the other women knew she would. Hell, Tayuya swore to herself she would join her. What if Naruto-sama is forced to choose between becoming Hokage and us? What will we do if he leaves us? He will never do that, just look at how far he's willing to go for us, and besides he's promised us that he will never leave, and Naruto never breaks his promises. Her mind at ease. Karen continued changing, the other two not noticing that Tayuya didn't seem as confident. She was the first to marry Naruto, and as stated by the Charter of Konoha Article 3 Feet Clans. Section 2, Restoration, Subsection E, Matriarchs, she was the elder mother, and as so was privy to the goings-on of the clan. Under this act, any other wives did not have the right to know anything. But neither she nor Naruto liked that Hisoka and Karen were left out, and so they were included as well. They planned to keep things this way until Matsu turned 18, then they would reveal things about the family. Neither of the women had very good lives. Up until her death, she had been betrayed countless times. In her home village before Naruto, before Orochimaru, she was in a street gang. These street urchins did what they had to survive. The leader was a boy about 13, she was about 7. It took her time to actually understand that she was being used by the boy as the slowest runner. She provided distraction. She would get caught and punished while he and the others got away, leaving scraps for her. She didn't want to accept the truth. She had friends and so she wanted to be friends with them forever. At least that's how her 7-year-old self would justify it. No need to mention her life with Orochimaru. Aside from Tayuya and Karen knowing she was the Kyuubi, she only told Naruto, in confidence, that as a demon she enjoyed killing humans. Years ago before the Shodai she would needlessly attack villages, enjoying the feeling of bodies as the crushing under her, the smell of human flesh, the sounds of pure horror of humans. It was her nature to enjoy these things, pure and simple. She enjoyed seeing them in pain and anguish. Her demonic powers fed of things of this sort. She needed this power to protect herself, from not only the humans but of other demons thinking they could kill her. She was trapped, in a vicious circle. She had to kill to protect herself, but in doing that she was attacked. She, like every demon, had a human form, but she was recognizable by the humans and could never find peace for very long. Karen had various talents. She could heal people by letting them feed on her chakra with a simple bite, and was able to trace chakra signatures. Although it was her chakra tracking that caused her the most pain, since she was a child she was attracted to people with large amounts of chakra. As she grew older she was physically attracted to it. So much so that when a band of Iwa scientists passed through her small village she followed them, leaving her parents behind. The nin took notice that she had special talents, and allowed her to follow. Training her as an Iwa nin, they had no worries of striking a 9-year-old girl as if she was a full-grown man. After all, they could heal her. She soon became a talented shinobi, but with the talents of a scientist. Orochimaru soon tried to take the research to create a vessel for himself of his dead rival, killing the Iwa nin and taking the girl for himself. So it came as no surprise when the snake was killed by his apprentice. She soon followed him. Neither of the women had ever known true attraction, true companionship or true love until they met Naruto. Each loved him and was willing to help him on his way to becoming Hokage and starting his clan. But Tayuya knew that his entire life's ambition was to become Hokage, and although he told her offhand 10 years ago, when they first met, she still remembered when he told her he would give up everything in the world to become Hokage. That had stayed with her since then, her past not allowing her to forget it. She hated to think about it, but could Naruto be another to use her and leave her like the rest? Tayuya-sama, Karen-sama, Hisoka-sama, I have an important message from Naruto-sama. A small pink toad burst through the window, startling the women enough that Hisoka was about to fry the intruder with one of her demon fire jutsu. What is it, Gamare? What's wrong with shithead? Tayuya pleaded, holding out the toad at arm's length so she could clearly see it. But after all the hopping the small toad was out of breath. Who knew? Darling is fine. He has news for you though. Flashback. Naruto stayed a little while longer and instructed Nyoko on how to use her new pendant, and to explain how her Kikai could use it, should the need arise. When she was called out to play by her cousins, Naruto stayed and chatted with Shino and Mine, where they invited him to dinner. He happily accepted, since Mine was a great cook. But before they started eating, Shibi came in and said he needed to speak with Naruto. Shibi-senai, Naruto started but was cut off when Shibi raised his hand. Naruto, I am not here to ask you what it is that you are doing. Nor am I here to reprimand you for not seeing the council. I trust you. I trust you with the life of my granddaughter, and that is all the trust I have for someone short of the trust in my wife. I am here to warn you. My Kikai heard Danzo give an order to one of his Anbu. Naruto's eyes widened but he kept his cool. What did he say? He didn't give the full order, but he told the Anbu to head to HQ and assembled 10 units to go on a mission. When he would arrive he would give them the official order. Did Danzo figure it out? I'm sure it'll be okay, but I have to be ready. How do you know this, Shibi? Not that I don't trust you, but how did your bugs hear this? As a precaution I place female Kikai on everyone in the room, just in case there are imposters. If one of them assassinates someone, I have a female on them to track them if they escape. Once they leave and the meeting is adjourned, do they come back to me? What they hear is just a byproduct. Shibi explained. Thank you, Shibi, I appreciate this. He shook hands with him and allowed the Kikai to feed off of him. This was the most respectful thing you could do for an Aburame since you put yourself at the mercy of the Aburame. Giving a quick nod, Shibi walked back in. Could Chiyo say no jutsu? Before the toad could say anything, Naruto cut her off. Not now, Ray-chan. I need you to find Tayuya, Hisoka and Karen-chan. Tell them they are being targeted by at least 10 Anbu units. I can't lose them, Ray-chan. If you have 2, help them summon some of the other toads. Do anything you can to help them. With her task in mind, Gamare leapt off into the night to inform her mistresses of the possible danger. Taking a deep breath to steady his frayed nerves, and to not alert the Aburames, he prayed that Ray-chan would get there in time. Flashback end. The 3 women were already running to go inform their men. Hisoka used her communication seal. She contacted the Onsen sisters. Rini? Rini's angelic voice replied in her typical sing-song fashion. Yes? Hisoka-sama? We might be attacked soon. Protect the children. Do not inform them, we will alert them and go. Hi, Hisoka-sama. The girl was no longer playing and was serious. Bursting through the door of their carriage, the men and women sworn to protect the fledgling clan were startled. Their commander Sagara Sosuke was at attention. My ladies, what is the problem? Sosuke, Naruto sent us a message that we may be the target of an attack. Prepare the men. I sense chakra coming at us fast. Karen answered, adjusting her glasses as she looked into the direction of the incoming chakra. If they were from Konoha, they must have circled them because it was coming from the opposite side of where Konoha lay. Relaying his message to those under him, Sosuke had something to say. Mistresses, leave this to us. Please do not get involved, it is our duty to protect you. Please go back inside, we will protect you. You dare tell us what to do? Hisoka asked. She was nice enough to the staff, but she disliked it when they openly questioned orders. Naruto and the other 2 didn't care and actually encouraged it, but she did not like that, but let it slide as they rarely questioned her orders. I mean, no disrespect, Hisoka-sama. It's just that, we would feel much better and will do our job better knowing you 3 are safe from harm. Sosuke bowed, afraid of what his mistress might do. This arguing is getting us nowhere, we'll compromise, we won't fight. But if they get anywhere near our children, get out of our way, we will handle it. Now go. Tayuya yelled at the man and he left. Ray-chan, why don't you go home, this could get dangerous. Karen told the pink toad she was currently tracking the group. They stopped, a few of them trying to encircle their caravan. No can do, Karen-sama. Darling, allow me to help summon help if you need it. And how do we summon the toads if we haven't signed the contract? No problem, Hisoka-sama. Just channel your chakra through me and I can summon them for you. Just tell me what you guys need and I'll summon a toad that can help us. We can do pretty much anything. The young toad said from atop her perch on Tayuya's head. She seemed pretty sure her clan was the greatest ever. It was still early, so if they started packing up camp it would make them look suspicious, so the women walked through and greeted the men and women, who had taken oaths to protect them and their family. Their husband was a man of many talent. One of these talents was the ability to help people. These men and women were all saved by Naruto in some fashion. Sosuke, the Onsen sisters, each and every one of these people felt compelled to help Naruto and his ambitions. They always felt odd when people called them mistress or added such an honorific as sama to their name. Neither felt comfortable about it, but it was now as much a part of their lives as was being married to a goofball. Several different Kaiden jutsu flew through the air towards them. Before they hit the group, several ramparts burst from the earth to intercept the attacks. And the attack began. They felt the heat from the jutsus, but as promised did not jump in. They stood near the entrance to their children's wagon, just in case. Karen could sense that some of the attacking force, that did not charge and was split. Half were lobbing attacks and the other half were trying to move closer from behind. They're coming from behind. Then they have secured their death. Sweden Gashokuzame. 1. With the 5 sharks hurtling at them, Karen called out, Zankukyokuha. 2. With a sudden *swoosh*, the wind currents changed and shot straight at the oncoming attack. Before the dust settled, Hisoka was in a fight with an Anbu. His ninjutsu struggling under the pressure from her Kawan no Yaiba. 3. What does Danzo want? She growled out, as the Anbu was losing to her. You're just the Diom's whore. We will kill you and those hell spawn. Die. Bakuhatsu. 4. She heard the hiss but was too slow to react in time to escape. Instead she released the control on her flame and fed it enough chakra to surround her. The ensuing explosion shook the field, but Hisoka survived, slightly deaf but alive. Her fingers danced across the small flute and with it her doki. She was in the heart of the battle, her 10 summons dancing around their opponents, striking with their weapons. Her 3 original beasts leading the charge at 2 more animal-faced masks. They held their own for a bit until her smaller, faster female doki weaved into their defenses and eliminated them with her Kama. 5. She was never a good fighter, but it did not mean she could not protect her children. Ryuka no Jutsu. 6. Suigaden. 7. Her fire technique was met head-on with a water jutsu, creating a cloud of steam. Since she did not need her vision to see her opponent, she quickly morphed into the ground. Before the ox-masked Anbu knew what hit her, she was 10 feet underground and could not breathe. By the time Karen resurfaced, next to Hisoka, she no longer felt the enemy's chakra. Hisoka-sama, one of them got away from us. Sosuke ran towards Hisoka and Karen. The bitch was hiding. Stupid whore was probably going to report to her damn pimp that she failed. Tayuya cut off as she threw the bloodied body of Akunoichi in standard Anbu armor. Bending down and grabbing her by the hair, Karen, the most timid of the 3, slapped her with a chakra-supported backhand. What does Danzo want with Naruto-sama? The women spat in her face. Lock her up, make her talk. Her knowledge may prove useful to Naruto-sama. I want the ones who lost their lives today buried, burn these scum. Then we move. We still have to meet Katsuyu-kun and the delegates. If you need us, we will be spending the rest of the day with the children. Sosuke saluted, and watched as the women walked over to the carriage and were ambushed by children. She hated not having her husband in bed with her to snuggle up to at night. The other 2 women in he bed could never be a substitute for the warmth that their husband's body gave. So it came rather easily for her to get ready for the day. Thinking back on it, the redhead had never had any idea that she'd be a mother, let alone sharing a husband with 2 other women. Or the fact that said husband was that loud-mouthed idiot she fought against all those years ago. Even if he still was a loud-mouthed idiot. She absently rinsed her hair under the showerhead. She knew it was bad for her hair's health, but damn it if it didn't wake her up in the morning. She toweled off and walked out of the bathroom back into the room naked as when she woke up. Passing by her husband's second wife with quick and sleepy morning kiss. Another interesting change, she thought as she quickly toweled her hair. While she was always attracted to men and had never found women attractive in that sense, she slept with the other wives whenever Naruto wasn't around. And she wasn't exactly sure how she felt about that. Given the choice, she would always want Naruto, but there were times when she would just as easily love both Karen and Hisoka. Even better, occasionally he watched them. The thrill of her husband watching as she pleasured her sister wives was indescribable. The anticipation of waiting for him to take either of them at that moment made her eyes glaze over. A quick swat to her bottom from Karen knocked her out of her perversions. She quickly finished dressing herself, hoping that today would be a normal day, unlike yesterday with the attack by Konoha Anbu. Since Naruto trusted Tsunade so much, Tayuya knew it wasn't normal Anbu, and so had to be Danzo's loyalists. That thought made her sigh deeply. He had been a thorn in Naruto's side for the last few years. What are you thinking about now? Karen asked as she wrapped her arms around Tayuya and started to nibble her neck. I'm wondering if Saguro was able to get anything out of that Anbu we captured yesterday. I'm positive that it's one of Danzo's ploys to off shithead. With the mood killed, they took comfort in the embrace, neither knowing what to say. Both were scared for their children and knew Naruto would never let anything happen to them. It was for that reason alone that Naruto had hid his family for a decade. With the council finally coming to an agreement that Naruto would be the best choice for Hokage, It presented him with the best opportunity to introduce his family and permanently remove his enemies from within the village. And Yondaimi's legacy or not, no village would directly attack Akage's family. Both women jumped as the bathroom door slammed open. Oh come on, we got all gloomy yesterday and I let you since we hadn't seen him in a while. But not today, everything is falling into place and we have to make sure everything on our end is clear. So get off your asses and get ready, we're packing up earlier to catch up with everyone else. And like the force of nature that she was, Hisoka had forced them to get ready in record time. And so they dressed as the elegant matriarchs of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan, they went to play with their children to give the Onsen sisters a little help. It was clear to them after the attack that the kids were getting restless being stuck inside a carriage for as long as they had been. On the way to the kids' carriage, Segura was waiting for them. The nin they captured had tried to kill herself last night with a false tooth holding a poison capsule. Fortunately, the medic assigned to her was able to save her, but it left her in a coma. So with that in mind, the women entered the carriage. Midori was the first to greet them. Midori, eldest of the Onsen sisters, was not that much younger than Tayuya or Karen. At 23, to their 27 and 26 respectively, she now helped protect Naruto's kids. She was in all honesty a blonde bombshell, and while her chest was not at the size of Tsunade, Midori could make Orochimaru blush. Good morning, mistresses, we just woke up the children. I assume you will be cooking this morning as well? Yes, after yesterday's little problem we thought we would keep the children company again. Karen answered. The carriage was more of like a large apartment. The foyer led to a hall that had the dining room and kitchen to the left and a playroom to the right. And at the end of the hall was a staircase leading to the children's and the Onsen sisters' rooms. When they entered the playroom, they already found Rini, youngest of the Kunoichi trio, and Tayuya's youngest son, 4 years, Satoshi, playing with Hisoka's only child, 5 years, Micah. Being of such close age, the two were nearly inseparable, and when together they could get into serious trouble. Micah, an adorable mini-clone of her mother, only sharing Naruto's tanned complexion, as opposed to Hisoka's alabaster skin, was the brains and leader of their operations, and Satoshi was muscle and executioner of their schemes. It was a hard lesson learned by the adults that if Micah came up to you and asked you for something, Satoshi was probably in the background doing something nefarious. With Satoshi looking like his father, he could easily charm himself out of most situations, using what his Naruto dubbed the Namikaze ladykillers, since so far all males, Minato, Naruto, Matsu and Satoshi, in the fledgling clan were blessed with those sapphire blue gems they called eyes. His light brown hair with the occasional blonde highlight only helped accentuate his cherubic face. Yes, Satoshi, like his sister long ago, discovered that anything remotely cute they did was magnified by their looks, even more so if they were together and mimicked each other. But for the moment they happily enjoyed the building blocks. Good morning, Mama. The duo parroted 3 times to each of their mothers, each receiving kisses from their mamas as Karen and Tayuya sat down with the kids. Well, I better start breakfast, Hisoka announced and left, with Rini quickly tagging along to lend a hand. Soon Matsu's voice was coming towards the room, speaking with his 6-year-old sister Tora. No, all of the clan techniques need superior chakra control. But Dad doesn't have perfect control. I can sometimes see his chakra. Well, cause Dad is Dad, he's like, the best ninja ever. And he has the biggest reserves of any ninja. But Minato Ojii-sama created the Hiraishin and his control was perfect. Isn't that right, Saki-ne? Saki chuckled as she readjusted, 3 years, Asuka, Karen's only child, on her hip to walk down the stairs. After she woke up Matsu, he woke up Tora while she went for Asuka. The next thing she knew, the brother and sister were arguing again. Well, I wasn't born yet, but it is said that your grandfather had amazing control and large reserves, not as large as your father's, but in comparison to the other cages he was powerful. But as a shinobi you must strive to become the best, and that means to have large reserves and control. That is why your father left you those exercises. Yes, well said, Saki. Karen commented as she stood and held her daughter, who was still rather drowsy. And so the 4 women played with the children until breakfast was served. Emotions were something that he programmed his soldiers to abandon early in their training. And yet all Danzo felt was anger and hatred, and it all stemmed from the Namikaze air. He was supposed to be easy to manipulate, He forced the Sandame's teammates to continue to stop Naruto's bid to become Hokage. Danzo's plan was to use the boy's lifelong goals as bait to get him under his thumb. Haruno Ume didn't understand why she needed, Sakura to marry Naruto. As far as she was concerned, it had to happen, and that was exactly how Danzo wanted it. The fool didn't know she was being manipulated. He thought that after being denied for so long, that when he was allowed to start his clan and start training to become Hokage, that the blonde buffoon would jump at the chance. Adding the pink-haired whore would just be the icing on the cake for Naruto. And then when his wife wanted her mother to live with them, Ume would be in a perfect position to take clan scrolls. And with the Hiraishin and any other techniques, Danzo could fund his coup. And have his unknowing spy assassinate the budding Hokage and his clan, and be the first to die in his new Konoha. Danzo's flaw though was that he underestimated the blonde ninja. He thought the idiot was an open book to read, yet he forgot the first thing that was taught to him: look underneath the underneath. Not having the correct information was just as angering as having the vessel not do as expected. Clearly whatever the boy was planning was dependent on what was to be presented to the council today. Luckily, Konoha had only one civilian road, so his forces would not have any trouble in locating and destroying whatever the boy had in mind to introduce.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.